The knocking on my door at 11:30 at night was soft, almost apologetic. That should have been my first clue that something was terribly wrong. My twin sister Rochelle never knocked softly. She was loud, confident, always bursting with energy whenever she visited. But when I opened the door that cold February night, the woman standing there looked like a stranger wearing my sister's face. Purple and yellow bruises covered her left cheek. Her right eye was swollen nearly shut. Her bottom lip was split and crusted with dried blood. She wore a blue coat buttoned all the way up despite the warm hallway, and she was trembling. "Rochelle," I whispered, pulling her inside quickly. "What happened? Who did this to you?" She didn't answer right away. She just stood in my living room, staring at nothing, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold the pieces together. I guided her to my couch, and that's when I noticed she was moving carefully, like every step hurt. "Tell me," I said, sitting beside her but not touching her yet. I didn't know if touch would hurt or help right now. "Tell me everything." The story came out slowly, in broken sentences interrupted by long silences. Gabriel, her husband of 5 years. The man I'd never particularly liked but had tolerated because Rochelle seemed happy. Or at least, she'd seemed happy when I saw them together. Now I understood that what I'd seen was just another performance, another layer of the lie she'd been living. It started small, she told me. Criticism about her clothes, her cooking, her friends. Then the isolation began. He convinced her to quit her job as a teacher. He said they didn't need the money, that she should focus on their home. That seemed reasonable at the time. Then he suggested she see her friends less. They were a bad influence, he said. They didn't understand their marriage. "I should have known," Rochelle said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I should have seen it coming." "This is not your fault," I told her firmly. "None of this is your fault. The first time he hit her was 2 years ago. She'd burned dinner because she was on the phone with me. He slapped her across the face and then immediately apologized, crying, saying he'd had a terrible day at work and would never do it again. She believed him. Or she wanted to believe him. Maybe there wasn't much difference. But he did do it again. And again. The violence escalated over time. A shove became a punch. A punch became being thrown against walls. He was always careful to hit her where clothes would cover the marks. Always careful to maintain his perfect image as Gabriel Thornton, successful real estate developer, pillar of the community, devoted husband. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Shame. Fear. The hope that things would get better. The fear that they never would. "He said no one would believe me," Rochelle said. "He said everyone thinks he's perfect. He said if I left him, he'd make sure I lost everything. He controls all our money, Renee. All of it. I don't even have my own bank account anymore." I felt rage building inside me, hot and fierce. Gabriel had systematically destroyed my sister's independence, her confidence, her sense of self. He'd isolated her from everyone who loved her and made her dependent on him for everything. And then he'd used that dependency to keep her trapped. "What happened tonight?" I asked. "What made you finally come here?" Rochelle touched her swollen eye gently. "He came home angry. Some business deal fell through. He started yelling about dinner not being ready. I tried to explain that he hadn't told me what time he'd be home, and he just lost it. He hit me over and over. I thought he might actually kill me this time." She started crying then, really crying, and I held her carefully, mindful of where she might be hurt. We sat like that for a long time, my sister sobbing against my shoulder while I tried to process everything she told me. "You're not going back there," I said finally. "You're staying here. We'll figure this out." "He'll come looking for me," Rochelle said. "He'll call the police and say I'm missing. He'll play the worried husband. Everyone will believe him. Then we'll tell them the truth. We'll show them what he did to you." Rochelle shook her head. "You don't understand. He's friends with half the police department. He donates to their charities. He plays golf with judges. His lawyer is one of the best in the state. Who's going to believe me over him?" She was right, and I knew it. Gabriel had spent years building his reputation, his network, his armor. Taking him down wouldn't be easy. But as I looked at my sister's battered face, I knew I had to try. We talked through the night. Rochelle told me everything about her life with Gabriel. His routines, his habits, his business dealings. She told me about the monitoring, how he tracked her phone, how he'd installed cameras throughout their house to watch her when he was away. She told me about his affairs, the women he'd slept with while demanding complete loyalty from her. She told me about the financial manipulation, how he'd taken her name off everything and left her with nothing. By the time the sun started rising, painting my living room in shades of pink and gold, I had formed a plan. It was risky, maybe even crazy, but it might be the only way to get real evidence against Gabriel. The only way to make him pay for what he'd done. What if we switched places? I said. Rochelle looked at me like I'd lost my mind. What? Think about it. We're identical twins. Even our own parents couldn't tell us apart when we were kids. If we cut your hair like mine, wore the same clothes, copied each other's mannerisms, no one would know the difference. Renee, that's insane. Maybe. But Gabriel has all the power right now because he controls everything in your world. He has money, connections, time to cover his tracks. But if I go back there pretending to be you, I can gather real evidence. I can document everything. I can build a case that even his fancy lawyer can't defend against. Rochelle was shaking her head, but I could see her considering it. He'd know. Somehow he'd figure it out. Not if we're careful. Not if you teach me everything I need to know. How you walk, how you talk to him, what your daily routine looks like. I can be you for a few weeks while you stay here and heal. And then we take everything I've gathered and we bury him with it. What if he hurts you? I can handle Gabriel, I said with more confidence than I felt. I'm not broken down like he's made you. I'm not afraid of him. And I'll be ready for him in ways you couldn't be. We spent the rest of that day and the next discussing the plan. Rochelle taught me about Gabriel's morning routine, how he liked his coffee, what he expected from her. She showed me old photos and videos so I could study how she moved, how she spoke, the little gestures that made her herself. We practiced conversations with her playing Gabriel so I could learn how to respond the way he expected. It was strange rehearsing how to be a victim. Learning to make myself smaller, quieter, more submissive. Everything in me wanted to fight, to rage, to tell Gabriel exactly what I thought of him. But that wouldn't work. To beat him, I had to play his game. I had to be the wife he thought he'd broken. There's one more thing, Rochelle said on the third day. Gabriel doesn't know about this, but I've been saving money. Just small amounts, cash back from grocery shopping, money I'd find in his pockets when doing laundry. It's not much, maybe $2,000, but I've hidden it in the house. If you can find it, you'll have something. She told me where to look and I memorized the location along with everything else. $2,000 wasn't much, but it was proof that Rochelle had been trying to escape. That she'd been planning for this. By the fourth day we were ready. Rochelle cut her hair to match my shorter style. We practiced one more time, running through scenarios, making sure I had every detail right. And then, on a cold Tuesday morning exactly 1 week after she'd shown up at my door, I put on Rochelle's wedding ring, looked at my sister's face one more time, and prepared to enter her nightmare. Be careful, Rochelle said, hugging me tight. If anything feels wrong, if you think he's going to hurt you, just leave. None of this is worth you getting hurt. I'll be fine, I promised. And in a few weeks, we're going to make him pay for everything he's done to you. He's going to lose everything, Rochelle. His reputation, his business, his freedom. I'm going to make sure of it. I meant every word. The week I spent with Rochelle preparing for the swap was the most intense education I'd ever received. We weren't just learning facts and routines. I was learning how to become a different person, how to inhabit a life that had been carefully constructed around fear and control. Rochelle's days followed a strict pattern. Gabriel expected breakfast at exactly 7 in the morning. 2 eggs over easy, 3 strips of bacon, toast with butter on the side, black coffee. If anything was wrong with the meal, if the eggs were too runny or the bacon too crisp, he'd make her throw it away and start over while he watched and criticized. He times everything, Rochelle explained. He knows how long it takes to drive to the grocery store, how long shopping should take, how long every task should require. If I'm even 10 minutes late, he accuses me of meeting someone or lying about where I've been. I took notes on everything. The grocery store she used, the route she drove, the checker she usually went to. Gabriel tracked her phone, so every movement had to match expected patterns. He'd installed an app that showed him exactly where she was at all times, and he checked it constantly. What about friends? I asked. Do you see anyone? Rochelle's face fell. Not anymore. He made it too difficult. He'd interrogate me about every conversation, accuse me of talking about him behind his back. It was easier to just stop seeing people. Now it's just me in that house, waiting for him to come home. The isolation was another tool of control. By cutting Rochelle off from friends and family, Gabriel had eliminated her support system. He'd made himself the center of her entire world, the source of all approval or punishment. We practiced walking. Rochelle had developed a particular way of moving through the house, always quiet, always careful not to disturb anything. She kept her eyes down when Gabriel was angry, made herself small in his presence. It went against every instinct I had, but I forced myself to copy her mannerisms exactly. He watches everything, Rochelle said. The way you stand, the way you look at him, everything. If something seems off, he'll notice. He'll get suspicious. I learned about Gabriel's business too. He owned Thornton Properties, a real estate development company that had been growing rapidly over the past few years. He bought old buildings, renovated them, and sold them for huge profits. On paper, everything looked legal and above board. But Rochelle had overheard enough phone calls and seen enough documents to suspect otherwise. He's involved in something shady, she told me. I don't know exactly what, but I've heard him on the phone late at night talking about deals that needed to stay quiet, about payments that couldn't be traced. He keeps a safe in his home office that I've never been allowed to open. That was interesting. If Gabriel was involved in illegal business dealings, that could be another avenue to destroy him. Financial crimes, tax evasion, fraud, anything that could bring additional charges and take away the money he used to maintain his power. We went through photo albums together. Rochelle showed me pictures from their wedding, from vacations they'd taken, from family gatherings. In every photo, Gabriel looked perfect. Handsome, successful, smiling. The image of a devoted husband. Rochelle looked happy too, but now I could see the tension around her eyes, the forced quality of her smile. He made me delete most of my social media, Rochelle said. He said married women didn't need to post pictures online for other men to see. But he posts constantly. Always showing off our house, our trips, his success. Everything has to look perfect for his image. I studied Gabriel's social media accounts. His profile showed a carefully curated life of success and happiness. Photos of expensive dinners, luxury cars, business achievements. Occasional pictures with Rochelle where she looked like the perfect wife. Comments from friends and business associates praising him, congratulating him, telling him how lucky he was. It was all a lie. Every single bit of it was a carefully constructed facade hiding the monster underneath. What about his schedule? I asked. When is he usually home? It varies, Rochelle said. Sometimes he comes home at 6, sometimes not until 10 or later. He never tells me in advance, and he expects dinner to be ready whenever he walks through the door. If it's not, or if it's cold from waiting, he gets angry. That meant I'd have to prepare food that could be kept warm for hours, or be ready to cook on demand. Another way Gabriel maintained control, keeping Rochelle in a constant state of anxiety, never knowing when he'd arrive or what mood he'd be in. We practiced conversations with Rochelle playing Gabriel while I responded as her. She'd throw out scenarios, sudden accusations, unexpected questions, and I'd have to respond the way she would. Apologetic, submissive, always trying to appease him. You're too confident, Rochelle said after one practice session. You need to seem more uncertain, more afraid. I know it's hard, but that's what he expects. If you seem too strong, he'll know something's wrong. I worked on it, practicing in front of mirrors, watching videos of Rochelle that she had on her phone. I studied the way her shoulders hunched slightly when she was nervous, the way she twisted her hands together, the way she avoided direct eye contact. All the body language of someone who'd been beaten down over years of abuse. On the 5th day, Rochelle took me through the house layout in detail. She drew maps, showing me where everything was kept, where Gabriel's office was located, where the safe was hidden. She told me about the cameras he'd installed in the living room, kitchen, and bedroom. The only place without cameras was the guest bathroom, and even that was only because Gabriel rarely went in there. The cameras record everything, Rochelle said. He reviews the footage sometimes, looking for any sign that I'm doing something wrong. You'll have to be careful about what you do when you're alone in the house. That would make gathering evidence harder, but not impossible. I just have to be smart about when and where I collected information. The cameras might even work in my favor if I could get Gabriel to reveal his true nature on them. We talked about money. Gabriel gave Rochelle a weekly allowance for groceries and household expenses. She had to save every receipt and justify every purchase. He'd canceled her credit cards years ago, closed her bank account, made sure she had no financial independence at all. That's how he keeps me trapped, Rochelle said quietly. No money means no way to leave, no way to hire a lawyer, no way to start over. I'm completely dependent on him for everything. But she'd been fighting back in small ways. The cash she'd been hiding was proof of that. And there might be other things Gabriel didn't know about, other small acts of resistance that could help build our case. On the 6th day, we practiced physical scenarios. What to do if Gabriel grabbed me, how to fall to minimize injury, how to protect my vital organs if he started hitting. Rochelle demonstrated the defensive postures she'd learned through painful experience, and I memorized them hoping I'd never need them. If he gets really angry, he goes for the stomach and ribs, Rochelle said, her voice distant. He learned early on that hitting me in the face too often would raise questions. But body shots he can hide under clothes. I felt sick hearing this, but I needed to know. I needed to understand exactly what I was walking into so I could be prepared. We also discussed allies. Rochelle had a neighbor, Patricia, who lived 2 houses down. They'd been friendly once, but Gabriel had gradually ended that relationship too. Still, Patricia had asked Rochelle more than once if everything was okay at home. She might be someone who'd noticed things, who might be willing to talk if approached correctly. There's also Gabriel's business partner, Frank, Rochelle said. They've been partners for 10 years, but lately I've heard them arguing. Something about Gabriel taking too many risks, making decisions without consulting him. Frank might know things about the business that could be useful. I added these names to my mental list of potential witnesses. People who'd seen cracks in Gabriel's perfect facade, who might be willing to testify if given the chance. By the 7th day, I felt as ready as I'd ever be. We'd been through every scenario we could think of, every possible situation I might encounter. Rochelle had taught me everything she knew about being Gabriel's wife, about surviving in that house, about maintaining the illusion of normalcy while dying inside. Are you sure about this? Rochelle asked one more time. It's not too late to find another way. I'm sure, I said. This is the only way to get evidence that will actually hold up. The only way to make sure he can't hurt you anymore. We hugged, holding each other tight. We'd always been close, but this past week had bonded us in a new way. I understood now what my sister had endured, the courage it had taken just to survive each day. And I was more determined than ever to make Gabriel pay for every moment of pain he'd caused her. The next morning, I put on clothes from Rochelle's wardrobe. A green sweater and jeans, nothing fancy. I styled my hair the way she wore hers, put on her wedding ring, took her keys and phone. When I looked in the mirror, Rochelle looked back at me. We were identical again, the way we'd been as children before life had taken us in different directions. Remember, Rochelle said, walking me to the door. If anything feels wrong, if you're in real danger, just get out. Call the police, call me, do whatever you need to do. Promise me. I promise, I said. But I'm going to see this through. For you and for every other woman he might hurt if we don't stop him. I drove to Rochelle's house, my hands steady on the wheel despite the nervousness in my stomach. The house was in an upscale neighborhood, a beautiful 2-story colonial with a perfectly manicured lawn. It looked like a dream home from the outside. No one would ever guess it was a prison. I used Rochelle's keys to open the door and stepped inside. The house was exactly as she described it. Elegant furniture, expensive decorations, everything in its place. And cameras in the corners watching everything. I was in. Now the real work began. The house felt wrong from the moment I stepped inside. Everything was too perfect, too controlled. The white carpet showed no footprints. The magazines on the coffee table were arranged at exact angles. Even the pillows on the couch were positioned with mathematical precision. This wasn't a home where people lived. It was a showroom, a stage set designed to project an image of perfection. I walked through slowly, getting a feel for the space while staying conscious of the cameras. Living room with the leather furniture and huge television. Dining room with the table that seated 12 but probably never hosted guests. Kitchen with top-of-the-line appliances that gleamed like they'd never been used, though I knew Rochelle cooked here every day. The master bedroom was upstairs. I climbed the steps carefully, trailing my hand along the railing the way Rochelle had shown me. The bedroom was large, decorated in shades of gray and navy blue. The bed was made with military precision. Gabriel's suits hung in the walk-in closet, organized by color and style. Rochelle's clothes took up less than a quarter of the space. I checked the time. 10 in the morning. Gabriel wouldn't be home until evening at the earliest, possibly not until late night. That gave me hours to explore, to start looking for evidence, to understand the cage my sister had been trapped in. I started in Gabriel's office. It was the one room Rochelle had been forbidden to enter, which meant it was probably where he kept his secrets. The door was locked, but I'd expected that. Rochelle had mentioned that Gabriel kept a spare key hidden in the bathroom, taped behind the mirror. I found it exactly where she'd said, along with several other keys on the same ring. The office was impressive. Dark wood desk, leather chair, built-in bookshelves lined with business books and legal texts. A computer sat on the desk, password protected. Filing cabinets stood against one wall, all locked. And there, behind a painting of a sailing ship, was the safe Rochelle had mentioned. I didn't try to open the safe yet. I didn't know the combination, and I didn't want to risk triggering any alarms. Instead, I focused on the filing cabinets. The keys I'd found unlocked them, and I started going through files methodically. Business contracts, property deeds, financial statements. Everything looked legitimate on the surface, but I photographed every document with Rochelle's phone, which I'd switched to airplane mode so Gabriel couldn't track it in real time. I'd go through everything in detail later, looking for irregularities. In the bottom drawer of the second cabinet I found something interesting. A file labeled personal that contained bank statements for an account in Gabriel's name only. The deposits were irregular but substantial. 20,000 here, 15,000 there, 10,000 somewhere else. Nothing that matched the regular income from Thornton Properties. I photographed every page, my heart beating faster. This could be the start of something. Unexplained income, possibly unreported to the IRS. If Gabriel was taking payments under the table, hiding money from taxes, that was a crime. A crime with consequences that even his connections might not protect him from. I continued searching. In the desk drawer I found a burner phone. That was interesting. Why would Gabriel need a second phone unless he was hiding something? I turned it on carefully. The battery was nearly dead, but I could see a list of recent calls and texts. Numbers with no names attached, messages that were cryptic but suggestive. Package delivered as requested. Payment received. Next shipment ready. This looked like more than just shady business deals. This looked like Gabriel was involved in something actively criminal. I photographed the phone's contents quickly before the battery died completely. By noon, I'd made copies of everything useful in the office. I returned everything to its exact position, locked the cabinets, put the keys back in their hiding place. When Gabriel came home, he'd never know anyone had been in here. I went downstairs to start preparing dinner. Rochelle had told me Gabriel liked pot roast on Tuesdays, so I got everything ready. The roast went into the slow cooker where it would be perfect by evening. Potatoes and carrots added. Bread dough started for fresh rolls. Everything needed to be right. While the food cooked, I explored the rest of the house more carefully. I found the hidden cache Rochelle had mentioned, tucked inside a box of tampons in the back of the bathroom cabinet. Gabriel would never look there. I left it where it was but photographed the location. More evidence of Rochelle's attempts to escape, proof that she'd been planning to leave. In the bedroom, I discovered a journal hidden between the mattress and box spring on Rochelle's side of the bed. My sister had been documenting her abuse, writing down dates and descriptions of every incident. Page after page of pain, fear, and desperation. Some entries were just a few lines. Others went on for pages, describing beatings in detail, recording Gabriel's threats and accusations. This was evidence. Real, documented evidence in Rochelle's own handwriting. I read through it all, my anger building with every word. Then I photographed every single page before returning the journal to its hiding place. The front door opened at 6:30. I heard Gabriel's footsteps in the hall, the sound of his briefcase being set down, his keys hitting the table. My whole body tensed, but I forced myself to relax, to move and breathe the way Rochelle would. "Rochelle?" he called. "I'm home." "In the kitchen," I replied, keeping my voice soft and submissive. He appeared in the doorway and I got my first real look at Gabriel Thornton. He was handsome in a cold way. Tall, well-built, perfectly groomed. He wore an expensive charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. His dark hair was styled precisely. His smile was practiced and empty. "Something smells good," he said, moving into the kitchen like he owned everything in it, which legally he did. "Pot roast," I said. "It should be ready in about 20 minutes. "Good." He loosened his tie, watching me. "How was your day?" This was a test. Gabriel always asked this question, and the correct answer had to be brief and positive. Rochelle had warned me about this. "It was fine," I said. "I cleaned the house and ran some errands. Nothing exciting." "Did you go anywhere besides the grocery store?" "No, just there and back." He nodded, apparently satisfied. But I knew he'd check his tracking app later, verify that I'd gone exactly where I said. Control meant verification meant control. "I'll go change," Gabriel said. "Make sure dinner's on the table when I come back down." He left and I exhaled slowly. First interaction passed. He hadn't noticed anything wrong. I was doing this. I set the table carefully, making sure everything was positioned correctly. Plate and silverware for Gabriel at the head of the table, my place to his right. Water glass exactly 1 inch from the plate's edge. Napkin folded in a triangle. Every detail had to be perfect. Gabriel came back down wearing slacks and a polo shirt. He sat at his place and I served him. Pot roast, potatoes, carrots, fresh rolls. I waited until he'd taken his first bite before serving myself a smaller portion. "It's good," he said. "Not great, not delicious, just good." Rochelle had told me Gabriel never gave real compliments. Everything was measured, calibrated to keep her uncertain and seeking his approval. We ate in silence. I kept my eyes on my plate, ate slowly and carefully. This was another test, another performance. Rochelle had learned over 5 years exactly how to behave at dinner to avoid setting Gabriel off. "I have a business dinner tomorrow night," Gabriel said finally. "You'll need to come with me. Wear the red dress I bought you." "Of course," I said quietly. "And Rochelle?" He waited until I looked up at him. "Don't embarrass me. Remember what happened last time." I didn't know what had happened last time, but I nodded like I understood. I'd have to ask Rochelle about that later, find out what I needed to be prepared for. After dinner, I cleaned up while Gabriel went to his office. I heard him on the phone, his voice too low to make out words. Business calls, probably. Or maybe calls related to whatever illegal activity that burner phone suggested. I finished the dishes and went upstairs. I'd sleep in the guest room tonight, I decided. I could say I had a headache, that I didn't want to disturb him. Creating some distance seemed smart, at least for the first few days. But when I tried the guest room door, it was locked. I hadn't expected that. I checked the other spare bedroom. Also locked. Every room except the master bedroom was locked from the outside. Of course. Gabriel controlled everything, including where Rochelle could sleep. There was no escape, no private space, nowhere she could go to feel safe. Even in her own home, she was trapped. I had no choice but to go to the master bedroom. I changed into pajamas in the bathroom, taking my time, hoping Gabriel would fall asleep before I had to get into bed. But when I came out, he was sitting on the edge of the bed, waiting. "Come here," he said. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to tell him exactly what I thought of him, to walk out right then. But that would blow my cover. That would end this before I had enough evidence to destroy him. I walked over slowly and he grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt yet, but firm enough to show his control. "You've seemed different today," he said, studying my face. "Is something wrong?" "No," I said. "I'm just tired." "Tired?" He repeated the word like it was an accusation. "You're home all day. What do you have to be tired about?" "I'm sorry," I said, using the words Rochelle had taught me. The words she'd learned to say reflexively to defuse his anger. "You're right. I'm fine." He held my wrist a moment longer, then released it. "Get some sleep. I need you looking good tomorrow night." He turned off the light and I got into bed, staying as close to the edge as possible. Gabriel fell asleep quickly, his breathing deep and even. But I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, thinking about my sister who'd endured this every single night for 5 years. Tomorrow I'd gather more evidence. Tomorrow I'd push a little harder, test the boundaries a little more. But tonight, I just tried not to think about where I was, about the monster sleeping 2 feet away from me, about how long this was going to take. I'd promised Rochelle I'd make him pay. And I would. No matter what it took. The business dinner was at the Riverside Club, one of those expensive restaurants where the staff whisper and the menu has no prices. Gabriel had laid out the red dress he mentioned, a form-fitting cocktail dress that was elegant but modest. I put it on and checked myself in the mirror, making sure I looked exactly like the perfect wife Gabriel expected to present. "You look acceptable," Gabriel said when he saw me. "Not beautiful, not gorgeous, just acceptable." Another way to keep Rochelle off balance, to make her constantly question her worth. We drove in silence. Gabriel's BMW was immaculate inside, leather seats that smelled expensive, dashboard without a speck of dust. He controlled the radio, the temperature, everything. Even the car was part of his domain where Rochelle had no say. The Riverside Club was exactly as pretentious as I expected. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, waiters in tuxedos. Gabriel was greeted by name, shown to a table where 3 other couples were already seated. Business associates, I realized. This dinner was about Gabriel showing off his success, his beautiful wife, his perfect life. "Everyone, you remember my wife Rochelle?" Gabriel said, his hand on the small of my back. Possessive, controlling even here. I smiled and nodded, shaking hands, making small talk. The other wives were friendly enough, discussing shopping and upcoming charity events. Their husbands talked business, throwing around numbers and property addresses and profit margins. I stayed quiet mostly, playing the demure wife role. But I listened carefully to every conversation, mentally recording details. Names, business deals, anything that might be useful later. Gabriel's partner Frank was there with his wife Helen. Frank was older than Gabriel, maybe 50, with gray hair and tired eyes. "That Mitchell Street project is moving forward?" Frank asked Gabriel. "On schedule," Gabriel replied. "We should close next month." The permits came through faster than I expected. I know people, Gabriel said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. It's all about connections, Frank. You know that. Frank didn't look entirely happy with that answer, but he didn't push. I filed that away. Mitchell Street project, permits that came through suspiciously fast, Gabriel's connections. More pieces of the picture. Halfway through dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom. The other wives came with me as women often do. In the bathroom, Helen, Frank's wife, touched my arm gently. Are you all right, dear? She asked. You seem a bit tense. I'm fine, I said automatically. Just a long day. Gabriel works you too hard with keeping that big house, another wife said. My husband's the same way. They expect everything perfect all the time. Helen was still watching me closely. If you ever need to talk about anything, you can call me. I mean it. There was something in her tone, a significance that suggested she knew or suspected something about Gabriel. I filed that away too. Helen might be an ally if I approached her correctly later. When we returned to the table, Gabriel was in the middle of a story about a recent business triumph. Everyone was listening, laughing at the right moments, congratulating him. He was in his element here, the center of attention, admired and respected. No one would ever believe this man was capable of beating his wife. That was what made him so dangerous. Gabriel was smart enough, charming enough, successful enough that people wanted to believe in him. They wanted to think he was exactly what he appeared to be. The truth was too ugly, too disturbing for them to accept without proof. We left the restaurant at 10. Gabriel was in a good mood, which should have been a relief. But I'd learned from Rochelle that Gabriel's moods could turn instantly. Good didn't mean safe. You did well tonight, he said on the drive home. You knew when to talk and when to be quiet. That's important. Thank you, I said, because that's what he expected. Frank's been questioning some of my decisions lately, Gabriel continued, more to himself than to me. He's getting cautious in his old age. Doesn't want to take risks anymore. But that's how you make real money, taking risks others are afraid of. I stayed quiet, letting him talk. When Gabriel got talkative, he sometimes revealed things he shouldn't. Rochelle had mentioned this, how he'd discuss business deals in front of her like she was furniture, assuming she wasn't smart enough to understand what he was saying. The Mitchell Street deal is going to be huge, Gabriel said. Triple our investment at least. Frank doesn't need to know all the details of how I made it happen. What he doesn't know won't hurt him. That was interesting. Gabriel was hiding aspects of the deal from his own business partner. That suggested something illegal or at least unethical. More ammunition for later. Back at the house, Gabriel went straight to his office. I changed into comfortable clothes and went to the guest bathroom, the only room without cameras. I locked the door and pulled out Rochelle's phone, which I'd been keeping in airplane mode except for brief windows when I could safely use it. I texted Rochelle quickly, updating her on everything I'd learned. The burner phone, the suspicious income, Gabriel's conversation about the Mitchell Street deal. Then I turned the phone back to airplane mode and hid it in my pocket. When I came out, Gabriel was waiting in the hallway. I jumped, startled. How long had he been standing there? What took you so long? He asked. I wasn't feeling well, I said. My stomach's been upset all evening. He looked at me suspiciously. You seemed fine at dinner. I didn't want to embarrass you by being sick at the restaurant. That was the right answer. Gabriel's image was everything to him. He nodded, accepting the explanation. Take something for it, he said. I don't want you looking sick tomorrow. We have the Henderson showing in the afternoon, and I need you to look good. The Henderson showing? I asked carefully, trying to sound like I'd just forgotten rather than never knowing. The penthouse listing I told you about last week, Gabriel said, irritation creeping into his voice. Don't tell me you forgot. No, of course not, I said quickly. I'm sorry, I'm just not feeling well. He stared at me another moment, then turned away. Get some rest. And Rochelle? If you're going to be scattered and forgetful, you need to work on that. I can't have a wife who can't remember simple things. I went to bed, my mind racing. The Henderson showing was something Rochelle hadn't mentioned because Gabriel probably told her about it after she'd already left. I'd have to play it by ear, figure out what he expected from me as we went. But Gabriel's suspicion was a problem. He was already noticing small differences in behavior, tiny inconsistencies between how I acted and how Rochelle would have acted. I needed to be more careful. Over the next few days, I settled into a routine. Cook breakfast, clean the house, prepare dinner, play the perfect wife. And whenever Gabriel was at work, I searched. I went through his office systematically, photographing documents, copying files from his computer when I managed to guess his password, which turned out to be his birth date plus the year he founded his company. I found more suspicious bank statements, more cryptic texts on the burner phone after I charged it. I found contracts that looked legitimate on the surface but had strange clauses buried in the fine print. I found evidence of bribes, payoffs, deals that involved cash exchanges and no paper trail. Gabriel was running a successful business as a cover for illegal activities. He was bribing building inspectors, paying off city officials, laundering money through property deals. The scope of his crimes was bigger than I'd initially thought. I also found something else. Photos on Gabriel's computer, hidden in a folder with an innocent name. Photos of women who weren't Rochelle. Women in hotels and restaurants in various states of undress. Gabriel wasn't just abusive. He was a serial cheater who apparently documented his affairs. Some of the women I recognized from his social media. Business associates, clients, even one of the wives from the dinner at Riverside Club. Gabriel had been carrying on multiple affairs while demanding complete loyalty from Rochelle, while isolating her and controlling every aspect of her life. I copied everything. Every photo, every document, every piece of evidence. I bought a USB drive when I was out grocery shopping, using cash Rochelle had given me so the purchase wouldn't show on the account Gabriel monitored. I stored everything on the drive and hid it with Rochelle's hidden cash. But as I gathered evidence, Gabriel was growing more suspicious. He started asking strange questions, making comments about how I seemed different. He checked in more frequently during the day, calling or texting to ask what I was doing. He came home unexpectedly once and seemed almost disappointed to find me exactly where I should be, doing exactly what I'd said I'd be doing. "You've been acting strange," he said one night at dinner. "Ever since you got sick that night after the business dinner. Are you hiding something from me?" "No," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm not hiding anything." "You better not be," Gabriel said. "You know what happens when you lie to me, Rochelle?" Yes, I knew. Rochelle's journal had documented it in painful detail. But I wasn't Rochelle, and I wasn't afraid of Gabriel the way he expected me to be. That was becoming a problem. I needed to push forward with the plan. I'd been gathering evidence for 2 weeks, and I had enough to start building a case. But I needed to do it carefully. Gabriel was getting suspicious, and a suspicious Gabriel was a dangerous Gabriel. That night, after Gabriel fell asleep, I snuck down to the guest bathroom and took Rochelle's phone off airplane mode for a few minutes. I had a contact, Detective Brian Foster, who Rochelle had found online. He specialized in domestic violence cases and had agreed to look at evidence if we could provide it. I sent him an encrypted email with a summary of what I'd found. Financial crimes, evidence of abuse, documentation of Gabriel's affairs. I asked if it was enough to move forward, if we could start building an official case. His response came quickly. "This is good, but I need more for financial crimes. The abuse evidence is solid. Can you get me bank account numbers, specific transaction details for the suspicious deposits? And we'll need your sister's testimony. Is she ready for that?" I thought about Rochelle, safe at my apartment, healing but still fragile. Was she ready to testify against Gabriel? To face him in court and tell her story publicly? I didn't know. But we'd cross that bridge when we came to it. I sent back, "I'll get you the financial details. Give me a few more days." The next morning, Gabriel left early for a site visit. As soon as he was gone, I went straight to his office. I needed those account numbers, those transaction details. I needed enough evidence that even Gabriel's lawyers couldn't defend him. I was so focused on the computer that I didn't hear the front door open. Didn't hear footsteps on the stairs. Didn't know Gabriel had come back until he was standing in the office doorway, staring at me sitting at his desk. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice very quiet. My heart stopped. I'd been caught. "I asked you a question, Rochelle." Gabriel's voice was still quiet, but there was steel underneath. "What are you doing in my office?" I forced myself to stay calm, to think fast. I was sitting at his desk with his computer on, logged into his files. There was no innocent explanation for this, so I had to go with a partial truth. "I was looking for something," I said, keeping my voice small and frightened, the way Rochelle would sound. "Looking for what?" He stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. The click of the latch felt final, like a trap springing shut. "Money," I said. "I needed money." Gabriel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You need money? I give you everything. This house, your clothes, food, and allowance for groceries. What else could you possibly need?" "I wanted to buy you a birthday present," I said, the lie forming as I spoke. "Something special. But my allowance isn't enough, and I didn't want to ask because I wanted it to be a surprise. His birthday was in 3 weeks. Rochelle had mentioned it during our preparation. It was a plausible story, maybe plausible enough to work. Gabriel studied me for a long moment. I could see him weighing the explanation, looking for holes in it. You broke into my office, accessed my private computer, to steal money for a birthday present? I wasn't stealing, I said. I was going to pay it back from the grocery money a little at a time. I just wanted to get you something nice, something that showed how much I appreciate everything you do for me. It was sickening saying these words, pretending to be grateful to the man who'd abused my sister for years. But I needed Gabriel to believe me. I needed to defuse this situation before it exploded. Stand up, Gabriel said. I stood, my legs shaking slightly. That wasn't an act. I knew what could happen here. Knew that if Gabriel decided I was lying, if he lost control, I could be seriously hurt. Rochelle had warned me, but knowing it intellectually was different from facing it in reality. Gabriel walked around the desk slowly. He reached past me and closed the laptop. Then he turned to face me, standing close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Do you know what I do to liars, Rochelle? I'm not lying, I said. I swear, I just wanted to surprise you. He grabbed my chin, forcing me to keep looking at him. His grip was tight enough to hurt. You've been different lately. Distracted. Secretive. And now I find you in my office on my computer. You can understand why I'm having trouble believing you. I'm sorry, I said. I should have asked you. I shouldn't have come in here. I know this is your private space. That's right. This is my space. My office, my computer, my house. Everything here is mine, including you. You don't have the right to be in here, to touch my things, to make decisions without my permission. Do you understand? Yes, I whispered. I understand. Do you? He released my chin but didn't step back. Because I'm starting to wonder if you do. I'm starting to wonder if you're testing me, seeing what you can get away with. I'm not, I said. I promise, Gabriel. I was just trying to do something nice for your birthday. He stared at me for another long moment, then abruptly stepped back. Get out. And Rochelle? Don't ever come in this office again. If I find out you've been in here, if I see one thing out of place, there will be consequences. Clear? Clear, I said and fled. My hands were shaking as I went downstairs. That had been too close. Gabriel was suspicious now, actively watching for signs that something was wrong. I needed to be more careful. I also needed to move faster because my window of opportunity was closing. I went to the kitchen and started preparing lunch, trying to look normal, trying to act like the submissive wife Gabriel expected. But my mind was racing. I needed those bank account numbers, those transaction details. But I couldn't risk going back into the office while Gabriel was on alert. Gabriel came down an hour later. He didn't mention the office incident. Instead, he acted like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just threatened me. This was part of his pattern, Rochelle had said. Anger followed by normalcy, keeping her constantly off balance, never knowing which Gabriel she'd be facing. I have to go back out, he said. I'll be home late tonight. Don't wait up. Okay, I said. Do you want me to leave dinner in the oven? I'll eat out, he said. Don't worry about it. He left and I waited 30 minutes to make sure he wasn't coming back. Then I made a decision. I couldn't access Gabriel's office computer safely anymore, but there were other ways to get information. I called the bank number I'd found on those suspicious account statements. Thornton Properties, I said when the customer service representative answered. I need to verify some transaction details on our business account. I'll need to verify your identity first, the representative said. What's the account number? I rattled off the number from the statements I'd photographed. This is Rochelle Thornton. I'm calling on behalf of my husband Gabriel Thornton, the account holder. And what's your relationship to the account? I'm his wife and business partner, I lied smoothly. We manage Thornton Properties together. There was typing on the other end. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thornton, but I don't show you as an authorized user on this account. I can't give out information without speaking to Mr. Thornton directly. I'd expected that, but it was worth a try. I understand. Could you tell me what I'd need to become an authorized user? My husband and I are consolidating our business management, and it would be helpful if I had access. Mr. Thornton would need to come into the branch or submit a notarized form adding you to the account, the representative said. Would you like me to email you the form? Yes, please, I said, giving her an email address I'd set up just for this purpose. Send it to RochelleThornton72@gmail.com. I hung up and checked the email. The form was there. And on the form, as an example, was a sample account number format and details about what information the bank would require. It wasn't everything I needed, but it was something. I spent the rest of the day planning my next moves. Gabriel's suspicion was a problem, but it might also be an opportunity. If he was distracted worrying about what I was up to, he might make mistakes. He might get careless with his own security. I also started being more visible with the neighbors. I'd been keeping to myself, playing the isolated victim role. But now I made a point of being outside when Patricia, the neighbor Rochelle had mentioned, was getting her mail. "Hi," I said, waving. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" Patricia looked surprised but pleased. "Rochelle, it's good to see you. You've been keeping to yourself lately." "I know," I said, walking over to her yard. "Gabriel's been working so much and I've just been busy with the house. But I realized I've been neglecting my friendships." We chatted for a few minutes about nothing important. Weather, neighborhood gossip, an upcoming block party. But I could see Patricia studying me, noticing things. The way I stood a little straighter than Rochelle used to. The way I made eye contact more directly. "Is everything all right?" Patricia asked carefully. "At home, I mean." "Of course," I said, smiling. "Why do you ask?" "No reason," Patricia said, but she didn't look convinced. "It's just, sometimes I hear things. Arguments, maybe. I wanted to make sure you knew that if you ever needed anything, if you ever needed help, you could come to me." "That's very kind," I said. "But everything's fine. Gabriel and I are happy." I left it at that, but I'd planted a seed. Patricia was paying attention. She'd noticed the arguments, the tension. If things escalated, if I needed a witness who'd seen warning signs, Patricia might be willing to speak up. Over the next few days, I continued pushing boundaries in small ways. I took slightly longer at the grocery store than usual. I forgot to make Gabriel's coffee exactly the way he liked it one morning. I wore a blue sweater instead of the green one he'd laid out for me. Each small act of defiance was calculated. I was testing Gabriel's reactions, seeing how much I could push before he exploded. Because I needed him to explode on camera, in a way that couldn't be denied or explained away. Gabriel noticed. He became more controlling, more critical. He checked the mileage on Rochelle's car obsessively. He called multiple times during the day. He went through the groceries when I got home, questioning every purchase. "Why did you buy this brand?" he demanded, holding up a box of cereal. "You know I prefer the other one." "They were out of stock," I said. "I thought you'd want me to get something instead of nothing." "You should have gone to a different store," Gabriel said. "You should have made sure you got exactly what I wanted." "I'm sorry," I said, but I didn't sound as sorry as Rochelle would have. I couldn't quite make myself grovel the way he expected. Gabriel's eyes narrowed. "You're not sorry. You don't care about what I want anymore. You think you can just do whatever you want." "That's not true," I said. "I'm trying my best to make you happy." "Are you?" He stepped closer, using his height to intimidate. "Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like you're challenging me, testing me, seeing what you can get away with." This was dangerous. I was pushing him toward the edge, and I needed to be careful not to push so hard that he hurt me seriously before I could complete my mission. "I'm not challenging you," I said, softening my tone. "I'm your wife. I love you. I just want us to be happy together." The words nearly choked me, but they had the desired effect. Gabriel's anger ebbed slightly, replaced by suspicion. "Then prove it. Prove you're still the wife I married." "How?" I asked. "The Henderson showing tomorrow," Gabriel said. "I need you there, looking perfect, acting perfect. Can you do that?" "Of course," I said. "We'll see," Gabriel said. "We'll see if you can remember how to behave properly." The next day, I dressed carefully for the Henderson showing. A navy dress, modest heels, minimal jewelry. Gabriel drove us to a high-rise downtown where Thornton Properties was selling a penthouse apartment. The place was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows with city views, marble countertops, top-of-the-line everything. A couple was already there when we arrived. Rich, judging by their clothes and the way they moved through the space like they owned it already. Gabriel turned on the charm immediately, becoming the successful, personable businessman everyone expected. And I played my part. The perfect wife, smiling and nodding, offering comments about the kitchen or the master closet when appropriate. Gabriel kept his hand on my back the entire time, a gesture that looked affectionate but felt like control. The showing went well. The couple seemed interested, discussing prices and closing dates. Gabriel was in his element, negotiating, selling not just the property but his image as a trustworthy, successful developer. As we were leaving, Gabriel's phone rang. He looked at the caller ID and frowned. "I need to take this. Wait in the car." I went to the parking garage while Gabriel stayed in the lobby, pacing and talking. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but his body language was agitated. Angry. When he got to the car 10 minutes later, his jaw was tight. Frank is being difficult again. He wants to review all the Mitchell Street contracts, wants to audit the books. He's getting paranoid in his old age. Maybe he's just being careful, I said. He's being a coward, Gabriel snapped. He doesn't have the vision to see what I'm building. He wants to play it safe, make small profits, stay comfortable. That's not how you get ahead. He drove aggressively, weaving through traffic, taking turns too fast. His anger was palpable, filling the car like toxic gas. I stayed quiet, let him vent, and watched carefully. Frank thinks he can question my decisions, Gabriel continued. Thinks he has the right to audit my work. Well, he's in for a surprise. I'll show him exactly what I think of his interference. This was interesting. Gabriel and Frank's partnership was deteriorating. That could work in my favor. An angry business partner might be willing to share information, especially if he thought Gabriel was doing something illegal. When we got home, Gabriel went straight to his office and slammed the door. I heard him on the phone, his voice raised but not loud enough to make out words. This was my chance. I went to the guest bathroom and pulled out Rochelle's phone. I texted Detective Foster with an update about Gabriel's suspicious behavior, about the tension with Frank, about my belief that the Mitchell Street deal was connected to Gabriel's illegal activities. His response was immediate. Can you get proof? Specific documents about Mitchell Street? That could be the break we need. I replied, I'll try. But he's watching me closely now. I have to be careful. Understood. But we need that proof soon. From what you've told me, we have enough for abuse charges, maybe some financial crimes. But if Gabriel's bribing officials or laundering money, we can add years to his sentence. Get me that proof. I deleted the conversation and put the phone away. Mitchell Street documents. Gabriel kept everything important in his office and I'd been banned from going in there. But I had to find a way. Because Detective Foster was right. The more charges we could bring, the longer Gabriel would be locked away, the safer Rochelle would be. That night, I lay in bed next to Gabriel, listening to him sleep, and formed a plan. It was risky, but everything about this situation was risky. I'd come this far. I wasn't backing down now. Tomorrow, I'd find those Mitchell Street documents. Tomorrow, I'd get the proof we needed. And soon, very soon, Gabriel Thornton's perfect life was going to come crashing down around him. I woke up early before Gabriel's alarm went off. I slipped out of bed quietly and went downstairs to start breakfast. The routine was second nature now. Coffee brewing, eggs cooking, bacon in the pan. Everything had to be ready exactly when Gabriel came downstairs at 7. But this morning I was planning something different. Something risky. Gabriel appeared at 7 precisely, dressed in a gray suit, tie perfectly knotted. He sat at the table and picked up his coffee, taking a sip and grimacing. This is cold, he said. I'm sorry, I said, though the coffee was actually the perfect temperature. I'd made it exactly 4 minutes ago. Let me make you a fresh cup. I poured the coffee down the sink and started a new pot, moving slowly. Gabriel checked his watch impatiently. I have an 8 o'clock meeting, he said. I don't have time for this. I'll hurry, I said, but I didn't hurry. I let the coffee brew at its normal pace while Gabriel got more and more agitated. Forget it, he finally said, standing up. I'll get coffee on the way. He grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door. This was what I'd been hoping for. Gabriel rushed when he was running late, and rushed meant careless. Don't you want breakfast? I called after him. I'll eat at the office, he said, and then he was gone. I waited exactly 3 minutes, listening for the sound of his car pulling out of the driveway. Then I went to his office. The door was locked as always, but I had the spare key from the bathroom hiding place. Inside I moved quickly. I didn't know how much time I had. Gabriel might realize he forgot something and come back. I needed to find those Mitchell Street documents and get out. The filing cabinet was the logical place to start. I unlocked it and started going through files. Property records, contracts, financial statements. Everything was meticulously organized, which actually made it easier to search. I found the Mitchell Street file in the 3rd drawer. It was thick, full of documents spanning several months. Purchase agreements, renovation plans, permit applications, and there, near the back, what I was looking for. A series of emails printed out and stapled together. Gabriel corresponding with someone named J. Morrison about the Mitchell Street project. The early emails were normal business discussion. But then the tone changed. The permit office is being difficult. They say the zoning isn't right for what we're planning. I can take care of the zoning issue. Will cost you though. $50,000 should handle it. That's a lot of money for a permit. That's the price of doing business fast. You want this project to move forward or not? Fine. How do you want payment? Cash. I'll send you an address. I photographed every page with shaking hands. This was it. Clear evidence of bribery. Gabriel had paid someone, probably a city official, to approve permits that shouldn't have been approved. This was exactly what Detective Foster needed. I kept digging through the file. More emails, more suspicious payments. Gabriel had been bribing officials for years, greasing wheels to get his projects approved faster than his competitors. It wasn't just Mitchell Street. It was a pattern of corruption. I photographed everything. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals that matched the bribe amounts. More emails discussing payments and favors. Notes in Gabriel's handwriting about which officials were cooperative and which needed to be convinced. I was so focused on photographing that I almost didn't hear the sound of a car in the driveway. Almost didn't hear the front door opening. Almost didn't realize Gabriel had come back. Rochelle? He called from downstairs. Are you here? My heart jumped into my throat. I was in his office, surrounded by evidence, with no innocent explanation for why I was here. If he came upstairs, if he found me, this was over. I shoved the Mitchell Street file back into the drawer as quietly as possible. Locked the filing cabinet. Slipped the office key into my pocket. The camera was harder. I had it around my neck and there was no time to hide it properly. I stuffed it under my shirt and prayed it wasn't too obvious. Rochelle? Gabriel's voice was closer now. He was climbing the stairs. I opened the office door and stepped into the hallway, closing it behind me as quietly as possible. Gabriel appeared at the top of the stairs just as I was walking away from his office door. What are you doing up here? He asked. I was just putting away laundry, I said, thinking fast. I heard you come in. Did you forget something? Gabriel studied me for a long moment. I could feel the camera pressing against my stomach under my shirt, could feel my pulse racing, could feel everything about to fall apart. My phone? Gabriel said finally. I left it on the bedroom nightstand. I'll get it for you, I said quickly, moving toward the bedroom before he could stop me. His phone was where he said it was. I grabbed it and brought it back to him, trying not to move too fast, trying not to look guilty. Here you go, I said. Gabriel took the phone, still watching me carefully. You seem nervous. I'm not nervous, I said. I just didn't expect you to come back. You startled me. Did I? He stepped closer. Or is there another reason you're acting strange? No, I said. There's no other reason. His hand shot out suddenly and grabbed my arm. Not hard enough to bruise, but firm enough to control. You're lying to me. I can tell. What were you really doing up here? I told you, I said. Laundry. Show me, Gabriel said. Show me this laundry you were putting away. He dragged me to the bedroom and threw open the closet doors. My mind raced, trying to figure out what to say, how to salvage this. But then I saw it. A basket of clean laundry sitting on the closet floor, clothes I'd washed yesterday and hadn't put away yet. There, I said, pointing. I was putting those away. Gabriel looked at the basket, then at me. I could see him calculating, trying to decide if I was telling the truth. Finally, he released my arm. Put it away then, he said. And Rochelle? Stop being so jumpy. It makes me think you're hiding something. I'm not hiding anything, I said. Good, Gabriel said. Because if I find out you're lying to me, if I find out you're doing something behind my back, there will be consequences. Do you understand? I understand, I said. Gabriel left and I heard his car pull out of the driveway again. Only then did I let myself breathe. Only then did I pull the camera out from under my shirt and check the photos. They were there. All of them. Clear evidence of Gabriel's crimes. I'd done it. I'd gotten what we needed. But Gabriel's suspicion was growing. He'd almost caught me. Next time, I might not be so lucky. I needed to move faster, get this evidence to Detective Foster, start the process of bringing Gabriel down before he figured out what I was doing. I called Detective Foster from the guest bathroom, the phone on speaker while I transferred photos to the USB drive I'd been using to store evidence. I have it, I told him. Proof of bribery. Multiple instances over several years. It's all documented. That's excellent, Detective Foster said. Can you get me copies? I'm putting everything on a USB drive right now, I said. How do we do this? How do we move forward? I need to see the evidence first, Detective Foster said. Then I'll take it to the district attorney. Based on what you've told me, we're looking at multiple felonies. Bribery, fraud, probably tax evasion if he didn't report those cash payments. Combined with the abuse evidence, we can put Gabriel away for a long time. How long before you can arrest him? I asked. These things take time, Detective Foster said. We need to build an airtight case. But based on what you're telling me, we're close. Maybe a week, 2 at most. I don't know if I have 2 weeks, I said. Gabriel's getting suspicious. He almost caught me today. If he figures out what I'm doing, he could destroy evidence or hurt me. Can you get the USB drive to me today? Detective Foster asked. If I have everything you can get out of there. Go back to your sister's apartment and wait while we finalize the case. I'll bring it to you this afternoon, I said. Where do you want to meet? We arranged to meet at a coffee shop across town, somewhere Gabriel would never go. I'd tell him I was going grocery shopping, give him the usual route I took, and then detour to meet Detective Foster. I finished transferring the files and hid the USB drive in my purse. Then I went downstairs and called Gabriel at his office. I need to go grocery shopping, I said when he answered. We're running low on a few things. Fine, Gabriel said. But be back by 3. I'm coming home early today and I want dinner ready. I will, I said. See you at 3. I hung up and checked the time. 11:30. That gave me 3.5 hours, plenty of time to meet Detective Foster and get back. I grabbed Rochelle's keys and headed out. The coffee shop was busy, full of people working on laptops or chatting over drinks. I found Detective Foster at a corner table, a middle-aged man with graying hair and kind eyes. He'd been patient with me over the past few weeks, answering my questions, giving me advice on how to gather evidence safely. Mrs. Patterson, he said, standing to shake my hand. He knew my real name, knew the whole story of the sister swap. I'm glad you made it. Here's everything, I said, passing him the USB drive across the table. Photos of documents, bank statements, emails, all of it. Everything you need to prove Gabriel's been bribing city officials. Detective Foster plugged the drive into his laptop and started scrolling through files. His expression grew more serious with each page. This is good, he said. Really good. This is evidence of systematic corruption. And you say you have evidence of abuse as well? Photos of my sister's injuries, her journal documenting years of abuse, medical records from a hospital visit after one particularly bad beating, I said. It's all on there. And you're willing to testify? Detective Foster asked. Your sister too? Yes, I said. We both are. We want to make sure Gabriel pays for everything he's done. Detective Foster nodded. Then I'll take this to the DA today. We'll start building the case immediately. In the meantime, I think you should get out of that house. It's not safe for you there anymore. I agree, I said. I'll pack a bag and leave today. Tell Gabriel I'm visiting a sick friend or something. By the time he realizes I'm not coming back, you'll already have the arrest warrant. That's smart, Detective Foster said. Stay safe and I'll be in touch soon. I left the coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in weeks. It was almost over. Soon Gabriel would be arrested, charged, locked away where he couldn't hurt anyone else. Rochelle would be free. I would have kept my promise to her. I stopped at the grocery store on the way home, buying everything on my list so Gabriel couldn't accuse me of lying about where I'd been. I checked the time. 2:15. Perfect. I'd be home with time to spare. But when I pulled into the driveway at 2:30, Gabriel's car was already there. He'd said he wouldn't be home until 3. Why was he here early? I grabbed the grocery bags and went inside, my stomach sinking. Something was wrong. I could feel it. Gabriel? I called. I'm home. No answer. The house was quiet but not empty. I could sense him here somewhere, waiting. I put the groceries on the kitchen counter and turned around. Gabriel was standing in the doorway, blocking my exit. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. Hi, honey, I said, trying to sound normal. I didn't expect you home so early. I bet you didn't, Gabriel said. Where were you, Rochelle? Grocery shopping, I said. I told you I was going. Grocery shopping, Gabriel repeated. That's funny. Because according to your phone's location history, you went to a coffee shop on the other side of town. You were there for 45 minutes. Who were you meeting? My blood ran cold. The tracking app. I'd forgotten about the tracking app on Rochelle's phone. Gabriel had been monitoring my location the entire time. I stopped for coffee, I said. I was tired. I needed a break. You're lying, Gabriel said quietly. You're lying to me about where you were and what you were doing. And I think I know why. He pulled something out of his pocket. My stomach dropped. It was the spare key to his office, the one I'd been using. The one I'd forgotten to put back in the bathroom hiding spot. I found this in your pocket when I was doing laundry last week, Gabriel said. You've been in my office. You've been going through my things. And I want to know why. There was no point in lying anymore. He knew. Maybe he'd known for days and had been watching me, gathering his own evidence. Maybe he'd been playing me the same way I'd been playing him. I know what you've been doing, I said, deciding to go on the offensive. I know about the bribes, the affairs, all of it. And I have proof, Gabriel. Proof that's going to send you to prison. Gabriel smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. Is that so? And where is this proof? Somewhere safe, I said. Somewhere you'll never find it. We'll see about that, Gabriel said, and he started walking toward me. I backed away, but there was nowhere to go. I was trapped in the kitchen with Gabriel between me and the exit. And I could see in his eyes that he was done playing games. Done being patient. He was going to make me tell him where the evidence was, and he wasn't going to be gentle about it. I'd pushed him too far. And now I was about to pay the price. Gabriel advanced slowly, deliberately, like a predator stalking prey. I backed up until I hit the kitchen counter, trapped with nowhere to go. You think you're clever, Gabriel said, his voice eerily calm. You think you can outsmart me. But I've known something was wrong for days. I just needed to figure out what you were planning. Stay away from me, I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. Or what? Gabriel laughed. You'll call the police? Go ahead. Call them. They'll believe me over you just like everyone always does. I'm Gabriel Thornton, respected businessman and pillar of the community. You're just my troubled wife who's been acting erratically. He was right that people would believe him. That's what made him so dangerous. But he was wrong about one thing. I already gave everything to the police, I said. Every document, every photo, every piece of evidence. They have it all, Gabriel. Your life is over. For the first time, I saw real fear flash across his face. But it was quickly replaced by rage. You're lying, he said. You're bluffing to protect yourself. Am I? I pulled out Rochelle's phone and held it up. Detective Brian Foster has everything. He's probably meeting with the district attorney right now, getting an arrest warrant. You're done, Gabriel. It's over. Gabriel's hand shot out and grabbed the phone from me, throwing it against the wall. It shattered, pieces scattering across the floor. Nothing is over, Gabriel said. Not until I say it is. You've made a mistake, Rochelle. Big mistake. And now you're going to fix it. I can't fix it, I said. Even if I wanted to. The police have the evidence. There's nothing I can do. Then you're useless to me, Gabriel said, and his hand wrapped around my throat. I'd known this moment might come. Rochelle had warned me about Gabriel's violence, about how he lost control when cornered. But knowing something intellectually was different from experiencing it. His grip tightened, cutting off my air. I clawed at his hand, trying to break free, but he was stronger than me. Black spots danced at the edges of my vision. Then suddenly he released me. I collapsed against the counter, gasping for air, my throat burning. I could kill you right now, Gabriel said conversationally. I could make it look like an accident. Grieving husband finds his wife dead in the kitchen. Tragic accident. Everyone feels sorry for me. They'd know, I managed to say. They'd investigate. Maybe, Gabriel said. But I'd have time. Time to destroy evidence, time to get my story straight, time to disappear if I needed to. The question is that really what you want? You dead, me possibly free, and your sister left wondering what happened to you? My sister. He thought I was Rochelle. He still didn't know about the swap. That gave me an idea. A desperate, risky idea. I'll make you a deal, I said, my voice hoarse from where he'd choked me. You're in no position to make deals, Gabriel said. Just listen, I said. You're right that killing me would cause problems. Too many questions, too much investigation. But if I disappear voluntarily, if I leave and never come back, that's different. That's just a wife who left her husband. Gabriel studied me suspiciously. Why would you offer that? Because I'm scared, I said, which was at least partially true. I'm scared of what you'll do to me. I just want to get away from you, start over somewhere else. You let me go and I'll disappear. I'll never testify against you, never talk to the police again. You already gave them evidence, Gabriel said. Evidence they can't use without my testimony, I lied. I'm the source. Without me to verify where it came from, it's just random documents that could have been faked. You know how the legal system works, Gabriel. You need witnesses. I could see him considering it. He wanted to believe there was a way out of this, a way to salvage his life. You'd really do that? He asked. Just disappear? Yes, I said. I'll pack a bag, leave right now, and you'll never see me again. All I want is my life, Gabriel. That's all I've ever wanted. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Fine. Pack a bag. You have 10 minutes. And Rochelle? If you ever come back, if you ever try to testify against me, I will find you. I will make you sorry you were ever born. Do you understand? I understand, I said. I went upstairs on shaking legs, my mind racing. I didn't actually plan to disappear. Detective Foster had the evidence he needed. But I needed to get out of this house before Gabriel changed his mind, before he decided killing me was safer than letting me go. I grabbed a bag and threw in some clothes, toiletries, anything I could grab quickly. I was almost at the bedroom door when Gabriel appeared, blocking my exit again. One more thing, he said. Your phone. Give it to me. You already destroyed it, I said. The other one, Gabriel said. The one you've been hiding. I know you have a second phone, Rochelle. I'm not stupid. My heart sank. The phone was in the guest bathroom, hidden behind the toilet. If Gabriel found it, he'd see the messages to Detective Foster, proof that I'd been planning this for weeks. I don't have another phone, I said. Don't lie to me, Gabriel said. Not now. Give me the phone or the deal is off. I had no choice. I retrieved the phone from the bathroom and handed it to Gabriel. He scrolled through the messages, his face darkening with every word he read. Detective Foster, he said slowly. Brian Foster. I know him. He investigated a case I was involved in years ago, tried to find evidence of bribes. He never could prove anything. He looked at me with new understanding. This has been planned from the beginning. You've been setting me up, gathering evidence, building a case. How long, Rochelle? How long have you been plotting against me? Long enough, I said quietly. Gabriel's fist hit me before I saw it coming. Pain exploded across my cheek and I fell to the floor. He kicked me in the ribs and I curled up instinctively, trying to protect myself. You thought you could destroy me, Gabriel said, punctuating each word with another kick. You thought you were smart enough, strong enough. But you're nothing. You're nobody. And nobody is going to believe you. Through the pain I managed to speak. I'm not Rochelle. Gabriel stopped, his foot raised for another kick. What? I'm not Rochelle, I said again, pushing myself up to sitting. My ribs screamed in protest, and I could taste blood from where my teeth had cut the inside of my cheek. I'm her sister Renee. We swapped places 3 weeks ago. Gabriel stared at me like I'd lost my mind. You're lying. Look at me, I said. Really look. I'm not your broken wife. I never was. Rochelle is safe, somewhere you'll never find her. And I've been here gathering evidence against you because you're an abusive, criminal monster who deserves to rot in prison. Understanding dawned on Gabriel's face, followed by absolute fury. You switched places. You've been pretending to be my wife for 3 weeks. That's right, I said. And I got everything I needed to destroy you. Every document, every photo, every piece of evidence. Detective Foster has it all, and Rochelle is ready to testify about years of abuse. You're finished, Gabriel. For a moment I thought he was going to kill me right there. The rage on his face was terrifying. But then something changed. He stepped back and his expression became calculating. This is even better, he said slowly. You're not Rochelle. You're an imposter who broke into my home, impersonated my wife, accessed my private documents without permission. That's identity theft, breaking and entering, possibly espionage. The police will arrest you, not me. I hadn't thought of that. He was right. What I'd done was technically illegal. I'd entered his home under false pretenses, accessed his private files, impersonated someone else. Even if I had good reasons, even if I was protecting my sister, Gabriel could spin this to make me look like the criminal. Doesn't matter, I said, though my confidence was wavering. The evidence is real. What you did to Rochelle is real. They'll still charge you. Maybe, Gabriel said. Or maybe they'll question how that evidence was obtained. Maybe they'll throw it all out because it was gathered illegally. And then where will you be? In jail, probably, while I walk free. He smiled then, genuinely pleased with himself. You thought you were so smart. But you just gave me the perfect defense. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Police? Yes, I'd like to report a break-in. Someone has been impersonating my wife and living in my home. Yes, she's here now. The address is... I realized with cold certainty that I'd made a terrible mistake. In my determination to help my sister, to gather enough evidence to put Gabriel away, I'd broken laws. I'd given him ammunition to use against me and possibly against Rochelle too. But as Gabriel was giving the police his address, I heard sirens in the distance. Getting closer. Coming here. Gabriel heard them too. He frowned, confused. What? The sirens stopped outside. Car doors slammed. And then someone was pounding on the front door. Police. Open up. Gabriel and I stared at each other. Then he ran to the window and looked out. His face went pale. There are 3 police cars out there, he said. The pounding came again. Gabriel Thornton. This is the police. We have a warrant for your arrest. Open the door now. Detective Foster hadn't waited. He'd taken the evidence straight to the DA, gotten a warrant, and come immediately. They were here to arrest Gabriel right now. Gabriel looked at me and I saw something like respect in his eyes mixed with the hatred. You really did it? You actually took me down? I told you I would, I said. The front door burst open. Police officers flooded in, Detective Foster leading them. They found us in the bedroom, me on the floor bruised and bleeding, Gabriel standing over me. Gabriel Thornton, you're under arrest, Detective Foster said. Charges include bribery of public officials, fraud, assault, and domestic violence. You have the right to remain silent. 2 officers grabbed Gabriel, pulling his arms behind his back, snapping handcuffs on. He didn't resist. He just stared at me as they read him his rights. This isn't over, he said. My lawyers will tear you apart. You broke into my home, impersonated my wife, stole my private documents. You'll go to prison too. Maybe, I said, letting Detective Foster help me to my feet. But you'll be there longer. And Rochelle will be free. That's all that matters. They led Gabriel away. I watched through the window as they put him in the back of a police car, watched as the car pulled away with him inside. It was over. Finally over. Detective Foster turned to me. Are you all right? Do you need a paramedic? I'll be fine, I said, though my ribs hurt with every breath. Is Rochelle safe? She's safe, Detective Foster assured me. We had officers watching your apartment just in case Gabriel tried anything. She's been worried about you. Can I see her? Soon, Detective Foster said. But first, I need you to come to the station and give a statement. Everything that happened, everything you found, all of it on record. Can you do that? Yes, I said. I can do that. They took me to the police station. I spent 3 hours telling them everything, answering every question, describing every piece of evidence I'd collected. My hands shook as I signed the statement, but I kept my voice steady. When I was finally finished, Detective Foster walked me out to where Rochelle was waiting. My sister looked better than she had 3 weeks ago. The bruises had faded. There was color in her face again. And when she saw me, she ran over and hugged me tight. You did it, she whispered. You really did it. We did it, I said, hugging her back despite my aching ribs. Together. The next few days were a blur of activity. Lawyers, police interviews, media attention. Word had gotten out about Gabriel's arrest, and suddenly everyone wanted to know the story. The respected businessman, the hidden abuse, the sister who'd swapped places to gather evidence. But Rochelle and I stayed mostly silent. We let our lawyers handle the press while we focused on the legal case building against Gabriel. Attorney Monica Reynolds was exactly who we needed. She was sharp, experienced, and had a reputation for taking down abusers who thought they were untouchable. When we met her in her office 3 days after Gabriel's arrest, she laid out the situation clearly. Gabriel's lawyers are trying to get the evidence thrown out, she said. They're claiming everything was obtained illegally because Renee entered the home under false pretenses. Will that work? Rochelle asked nervously. No, Monica said firmly. First, you had every right to give your sister access to your home. You're married to Gabriel, your name is on the deed, and you authorized Renee to be there. That covers the breaking and entering claim. What about the impersonation? I asked. Gabriel said I committed identity theft. You were impersonating your own sister, who gave you permission to do so, Monica said. That's not illegal. Weird, yes, but not illegal. And more importantly, Gabriel's abuse of Rochelle is well documented. The journal, the medical records, the photographs. That's evidence that exists independent of anything you found in his office. She pulled out a folder and opened it. The financial crimes are trickier. Some of the evidence you gathered from his office might be challenged. But here's what Gabriel's lawyers don't know yet. When Detective Foster got the warrant to search Gabriel's home and office, they found additional evidence. The safe you mentioned? They opened it. Found cash, more incriminating documents, and another burner phone with even more damaging texts. So the case is solid? Rochelle asked. Very solid, Monica said. Gabriel is looking at multiple felony charges. Bribery, fraud, assault, domestic violence. We're talking years in prison, maybe decades. His lawyers know this. That's why they're trying to attack the evidence collection instead of defending against the charges themselves. Over the next week, more details came out. The district attorney held a press conference announcing the charges against Gabriel Thornton. 3 counts of bribery. 7 counts of fraud. Multiple counts of assault and domestic violence spanning 5 years. The news coverage was intense. Gabriel's business partners were interviewed. His friends claimed they never suspected anything. Neighbors said they'd heard arguments but never knew how bad it was. Everyone had an opinion, a theory, a judgment. But what mattered most was what came out during the investigation. Other victims came forward. Women Gabriel had dated before Rochelle. All of them told similar stories of control, manipulation, violence. The pattern was clear and undeniable. And Gabriel's business dealings were worse than I'd even suspected. The Mitchell Street project was just the tip of the iceberg. Gabriel had been bribing officials for years, cutting corners on safety regulations, falsifying documents. One building he'd renovated had structural problems that could have collapsed and killed people. He'd paid off inspectors to overlook the issues. "He's a monster," Rochelle said one night as we watched the news coverage together. "I knew he was abusive, but I didn't know about the rest of it. All those people he put at risk just to make more money." "You couldn't have known," I said. "He hid it from everyone, even his business partner." Frank, Gabriel's former partner, had come forward too. He testified that Gabriel had been hiding deals from him, making decisions without consultation, taking risks that violated their partnership agreement. Frank had been suspicious for months but couldn't prove anything until the police investigation revealed everything. The preliminary hearing was set for 2 weeks after Gabriel's arrest. Rochelle and I sat in the courtroom, watching as Gabriel was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed. He looked smaller somehow, diminished without his expensive suits and confident smile. His lawyers tried every argument they could think of. The evidence was obtained illegally. The charges were based on circumstantial information. The witnesses were unreliable. But Judge Patricia Martinez wasn't buying any of it. "Mr. Thornton," the judge said after hearing both sides, "the evidence against you is substantial and credible. The charges will proceed to trial. Bail is denied. You'll remain in custody until the trial date." Gabriel's face went white. "Your Honor, I'm not a flight risk. I have a business to run, obligations." "You have multiple serious charges against you," Judge Martinez interrupted, "including evidence suggesting you've bribed public officials, which means you have connections that could help you flee. Bail is denied." They led Gabriel out, and I saw him glance back at Rochelle one time. There was no remorse in his eyes, no apology. Just cold anger that he'd been caught. The trial was set for 3 months later. That gave us time to prepare, time for Rochelle to work with Dr. Helen Price, a therapist specializing in domestic violence survivors. Time for me to heal from my injuries and deal with my own emotions about what had happened. Those 3 months were hard but necessary. Rochelle had nightmares about Gabriel, fears that somehow he'd get out, that he'd come after her. Dr. Price helped her process years of trauma, helped her understand that none of it was her fault. "He chose to hurt you," Dr. Price explained in one session I attended with Rochelle. "Nothing you did caused his violence. Nothing you could have done differently would have stopped it. This was about his need for control, his anger issues, his choice to abuse. Not about you." Rochelle cried a lot during those months, but she also started to heal. She started to remember who she'd been before Gabriel, started to reclaim parts of herself she'd lost. She applied for teaching jobs again. She reconnected with old friends. She started to rebuild a life. I went back to my own apartment and my graphic design work, but I checked in with Rochelle every day. We were closer now than we'd ever been, bonded by what we'd gone through together. The trial finally began in late summer. The courtroom was packed with reporters, curious onlookers, and people who'd been affected by Gabriel's crimes. Rochelle and I sat behind the prosecutor's table, Monica Reynolds beside us. Gabriel's defense team was expensive and aggressive. They attacked every witness, questioned every piece of evidence, tried to paint Gabriel as a successful businessman being targeted by a vindictive ex-wife and her meddling sister. But the evidence was overwhelming. Monica presented the photographs of Rochelle's injuries, the journal entries describing years of abuse, medical records from hospital visits, testimony from doctors and nurses who treated her. Then came the financial crimes, the emails discussing bribes, bank statements showing suspicious cash withdrawals, testimony from Jay Morrison, the city official Gabriel had been bribing, who'd agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. "Mr. Thornton approached me 3 years ago," Morrison testified. "He said he needed permits approved quickly and was willing to pay for it. I was going through a divorce, money was tight. I made a terrible mistake and agreed. How many times did Gabriel Thornton pay you to approve permits or overlook violations? Monica asked. At least 15 times over 3 years, Morrison said. Probably more. Sometimes it was for his own properties. Sometimes it was for other developers who paid him, and he'd pass along some of the money to me. The defense tried to discredit Morrison, suggesting he was lying to reduce his own sentence. But the paper trail backed up every word he said. Then came the testimony from Gabriel's other victims. 4 women, all of whom had dated Gabriel before he married Rochelle. All telling similar stories. He seemed perfect at first, one woman said. Charming, successful, attentive. But gradually he became controlling. He wanted to know where I was every moment. He got angry if I talked to other men, even just friends or co-workers. When I tried to break up with him, he grabbed me and shook me. Told me I couldn't leave him. I got away, but I was afraid to press charges. He had money, lawyers, connections. I thought no one would believe me. By the time it was Rochelle's turn to testify, the jury had heard from multiple victims, seen mountains of evidence, listened to experts explain the patterns of abuse and financial crimes. But Rochelle's testimony was the most powerful. She walked to the witness stand with her head held high. She wore a green dress, simple and professional. She didn't look at Gabriel as she was sworn in. Monica started with basic questions, establishing Rochelle's background, how she'd met Gabriel, what their relationship had been like at first. Then they moved into the abuse. When did Gabriel first hit you? Monica asked. About 3 years into our marriage, Rochelle said, her voice steady. I'd burned dinner. He slapped me and said I was careless and stupid. Then he immediately apologized and cried, said it would never happen again. But it did happen again? Yes. It got worse over time. The violence escalated. And he started controlling everything. My money, my phone, my movements. I felt like I was drowning, but I didn't know how to escape. Why didn't you leave earlier? He'd taken everything from me, Rochelle said. My job, my friends, my financial independence. He tracked my every movement. He told me no one would believe me if I accused him. And I believed him. He was so good at maintaining his public image while being a completely different person at home. What finally made you leave? He beat me so badly that I thought he might actually kill me. I realized if I stayed, I would die. So I went to my sister's apartment, and we came up with a plan to gather evidence against him. The defense attorney, a man named Richard Harrison, tried to shake Rochelle's testimony during cross-examination. He suggested she was exaggerating, that her injuries could have come from other sources, that she'd conspired with me to frame an innocent man. Isn't it true that you and your sister planned this elaborate scheme to steal your husband's money? Harrison asked. No, Rochelle said firmly. We planned to gather evidence of his crimes so he could be held accountable for what he'd done to me and to others. But you admit your sister impersonated you, entered Gabriel's home under false pretenses, accessed his private documents without permission? My sister entered my home, which I have every right to allow, Rochelle said. She gathered evidence that my husband was beating me and committing financial crimes. She did what I couldn't do myself because I was too afraid and too broken down. Harrison tried several more times to discredit Rochelle, but she didn't waver. She answered every question calmly, honestly, without exaggeration. By the time she stepped down, I could see several jurors wiping their eyes. I testified next, explaining the sister swap, what I'd found in Gabriel's office, how I'd documented everything. Harrison attacked me too, suggesting I was a publicity seeker, that I'd broken laws, that my testimony couldn't be trusted. Did you break into Gabriel Thornton's office? He asked. I entered my sister's home with her permission, I said. As her identical twin, I looked exactly like her. I was gathering evidence of crimes being committed against her and by her husband. Crimes you allege, Harrison said. But you're not a police officer. You're not a lawyer. What gave you the right to take this into your own hands? The right to protect my sister, I said. The right to help someone who was being abused and had no way out. If you'd seen Rochelle the night she showed up at my door, covered in bruises, terrified for her life, you'd understand why I did what I did. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Both sides presented their cases, called their witnesses, made their arguments. Then it went to the jury. They deliberated for 3 days. 3 long days where Rochelle and I waited, hoped, prayed that justice would be served. 3 days of wondering if Gabriel's expensive lawyers had created enough doubt, if his carefully maintained image would protect him one more time. On the 3rd day, the jury reached a verdict. We all filed back into the courtroom. Gabriel was brought in, his face blank and unreadable. The judge asked the jury foreman to stand. On the charge of bribery in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of fraud in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. On the charge of assault in the second degree, how do you find? Guilty. 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 For every charge, for every crime, for every victim. The jury had seen through Gabriel's facade and found him guilty of everything. Rochelle grabbed my hand and squeezed tight. I looked over at Gabriel. His blank expression had cracked. He looked shocked, like he truly couldn't believe this was happening to him. Judge Martinez set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Gabriel was led away and Rochelle and I walked out of the courtroom into a crowd of reporters. How do you feel about the verdict? One asked. Relieved, Rochelle said simply. Justice has been served. We went back to my apartment and celebrated quietly. Just the two of us, eating takeout and watching mindless television. We didn't need fanfare or parties. We just needed to know it was truly over. 2 weeks later we returned for sentencing. Judge Martinez looked at Gabriel with no sympathy. Mr. Thornton, you have been found guilty of multiple serious crimes, she said. You abused your position of power and trust. You hurt people physically, emotionally, and financially. You showed no remorse and took no responsibility for your actions. She paused, looking at some papers. I'm sentencing you to 25 years in prison. With the terms of your sentence, you'll be eligible for parole in 17 years, but only if you show genuine rehabilitation. 25 years. Gabriel would be 60 when he got out, if he ever got out. His life, his reputation, his freedom, all gone. Rochelle exhaled beside me. It was finally truly over. The day after Gabriel's sentencing, I woke up to find Rochelle already awake, sitting at my kitchen table with her laptop open and a smile on her face. Look at this, she said, turning the screen to show me. It was an email from Riverside Elementary School. They want to interview me for a 4th grade teaching position. That's amazing, I said, sitting down beside her. When's the interview? Next week, Rochelle said. I'm nervous but excited. I haven't taught in 5 years. What if I'm not good at it anymore? You'll be great, I assured her. You love teaching. And now you get to do it again without anyone telling you that you can't. That was the strange part about the aftermath. Gabriel was in prison, no longer a threat, but Rochelle was still learning how to live without his control. She'd catch herself asking permission for things, then remember she didn't need to anymore. She'd make decisions and then second-guess them, worried about consequences that no longer existed. Dr. Price had explained that this was normal. 5 years of abuse doesn't go away overnight, she told Rochelle. Recovery is a process. Be patient with yourself. Rochelle was trying. She went to therapy twice a week. She reconnected with her old friend Whitney, who'd been her college roommate. She bought clothes and colors she liked instead of colors Gabriel had approved. Small steps, but each one mattered. The legal fallout continued for months. Gabriel's business partner Frank filed a lawsuit to dissolve Thornton Properties and recover his investment. Gabriel's assets were frozen while the court sorted out what had been legitimately earned and what had come from illegal activities. The city officials Gabriel had bribed were prosecuted too. J. Morrison got 3 years in a minimum security prison. 2 other officials lost their jobs and paid fines. The corruption ran deeper than anyone had initially realized. Building inspectors went back and examined every property Gabriel had developed. 3 buildings had serious safety violations that had been overlooked. Owners had to make expensive repairs. Some talked about suing Gabriel's estate, though there wasn't much left after legal fees and restitution payments. Gabriel's social circle abandoned him completely. The people who'd praised him at business dinners, the associates who'd considered him a friend, all distanced themselves once the truth came out. No one wanted to be associated with an abuser and a criminal. Rochelle and I attended a support group for domestic violence survivors. Rochelle found it helpful to talk with other women who understood what she'd been through. I went to support her, but I found I needed it too. I'd spent 3 weeks living in fear, never knowing when Gabriel might discover the truth that had left its own scars. I still have nightmares sometimes, I told the group one evening. About Gabriel finding out who I was, about him hurting me before I could get evidence out. That's normal, the group facilitator said. You put yourself at risk to help your sister. That took courage, but it also took a toll. Give yourself time to process it. 3 months after the sentencing, Rochelle got the teaching job. She came home from her first day with stories about her students, excited and energized in a way I hadn't seen in years. One of my students drew me a picture, she said, showing me a crayon drawing of a woman with a big smile. That's supposed to be me. She said I'm her favorite teacher. Of course you are, I said. You're amazing. Rochelle was rebuilding her life piece by piece. She got her own apartment, a small place but all hers. She decorated it with bright colors and plants, filling it with life. She opened her own bank account and started saving money. She learned to make decisions without fear of someone questioning or punishing her. One day, about 6 months after Gabriel's sentencing, Rochelle told me she'd been on a date. His name is James, she said. He's a teacher at my school. We went to dinner, nothing fancy. And Renee, I had fun. I didn't spend the whole time worried about saying the wrong thing or ordering the wrong food. I just enjoyed myself. That's wonderful, I said. Are you going to see him again? Maybe, Rochelle said. I'm taking it slow. Dr. Price says I need to make sure I'm ready for a relationship, that I'm not just jumping into something because I'm lonely or want to prove I can move on. That's smart, I said. But I'm glad you're putting yourself out there. Me too, Rochelle said. For the first time in years I feel like myself again. Like the person I was before Gabriel, before all of this. The legal proceedings finally wrapped up nearly a year after Gabriel's arrest. His business assets were liquidated. Some money went to pay fines and restitution. Some went to victims and civil suits. What little remained was split between creditors. Rochelle was legally divorced from Gabriel. She'd filed the papers while he was awaiting trial, and he hadn't contested it. By the time the divorce was final, Gabriel was in prison and Rochelle was already building a new life. We heard through Monica Reynolds that Gabriel had been moved to a medium-security prison upstate. He tried to appeal his conviction, claiming ineffective counsel and tainted evidence, but every appeal was denied. The verdict stood. The sentence stood. How's he doing in there? Rochelle asked Monica during one final meeting. Not well from what I've heard, Monica said. Gabriel's used to being in control, being respected. Prison doesn't work that way. He's just another inmate now. Good, Rochelle said simply. I understood the sentiment. Gabriel had made Rochelle's life a living hell for 5 years. Knowing he was suffering even a fraction of what she'd endured felt like justice. But more than that, knowing he was locked away meant Rochelle was safe. She could move forward without fear. She could heal without looking over her shoulder. That was worth more than any revenge. A year after Gabriel's sentencing, Rochelle's relationship with James had gotten serious. He was kind, patient, understanding about her past without pitying her. He treated her with respect and care. I liked him immediately. He's nothing like Gabriel, Rochelle told me. James actually listens when I talk. He asks my opinion on things. He doesn't try to control me or tell me what to do. It's so different. That's how relationships should be, I said. Equal. Respectful. Based on trust, not control. I know that now, Rochelle said. I didn't before. I thought Gabriel's behavior was normal at first, then I thought it was my fault. But now I understand that none of it was normal or okay. We also heard about Gabriel's former victims. One of the women who'd testified, a woman named Catherine who'd dated Gabriel before Rochelle, had started a support organization for domestic violence survivors. She credited the trial with giving her the courage to speak out. If Rochelle and Renee could take down someone like Gabriel Thornton, then other survivors can find justice too, Catherine said in an interview. Their courage inspired me to help others find theirs. That made everything we'd been through feel worthwhile. Not just because Gabriel was in prison but because our story had helped others. Because it showed that abusers could be held accountable, that victims could find their voices, that justice was possible. My own life had changed too. My graphic design business grew. People heard about what I'd done for Rochelle, and some reached out asking if I'd helped document abuse in their own situations. I had to explain I wasn't a private investigator and couldn't make a habit of impersonating people, but I did connect them with resources, with lawyers and detectives who could help. I also started volunteering at a domestic violence shelter, using my design skills to create materials for their programs. It felt good to take something terrible and turn it into something helpful. 2 years after Gabriel's sentencing, Rochelle and James got engaged. The proposal was simple and sweet. James took her to the park where they'd had their first date and asked her to marry him. Rochelle said yes without hesitation. Are you sure? I asked her later, not because I doubted James but because I wanted to make sure Rochelle was ready. I'm sure, Rochelle said. James is nothing like Gabriel. He makes me happy. He treats me well. And I'm not the same person I was when I married Gabriel. I'm stronger now. I know what I deserve. And if anything ever felt wrong, I'd leave. I'd never let myself be trapped again. Then I'm happy for you, I said, hugging her tight. The wedding was planned for the following spring. Small and intimate, just close friends and family. Everything Gabriel's wedding hadn't been. Rochelle chose every detail herself, from the flowers to the music to the food. It was her day, her choices, her happiness. Meanwhile, Gabriel remained in prison. We heard occasional updates through Monica Reynolds. He'd gotten into fights with other inmates. He'd lost privileges for bad behavior. He'd filed more appeals, all rejected. His perfect image was gone forever, replaced by the reality of what he'd done and who he really was. Do you ever think about him? I asked Rochelle one day as we were planning her wedding. Sometimes, Rochelle admitted. But not the way I used to. I don't miss him. I don't feel guilty. I just think about how different my life could have been if I'd stayed with him. How close I came to never getting out. But you did get out, I said. You're free. You're happy. You're marrying a good man who loves you. Gabriel lost everything and you gained everything. That's justice. Yes, Rochelle said, smiling. That's justice. As we sent out wedding invitations and picked out dresses, I reflected on everything that had happened. 2 years ago, Rochelle had shown up at my door bruised and broken. Now she was thriving, healed, ready to start a new chapter of her life. Gabriel had tried to destroy her. Instead, we destroyed him. And from the ashes of that terrible marriage, Rochelle had rebuilt herself into someone stronger, wiser, happier than she'd ever been. That was the real victory. Not Gabriel's prison sentence, though that mattered. Not the justice system working the way it should, though that was important. The real victory was Rochelle's transformation from victim to survivor to someone living a full, joyful life. Gabriel had taken 5 years from her. But the rest of her life was hers now. And she was going to make it amazing. Spring arrived with clear blue skies and warm sunshine. Perfect weather for a wedding. Rochelle stood in front of the mirror in a red dress, simple and elegant, her hair styled in soft waves. She looked beautiful and confident and happy. Ready? I asked, adjusting the small bouquet of white roses she'd carried down the aisle. More than ready, Rochelle said. This feels right, Renee. Everything about this feels right. The ceremony was in a small garden venue, decorated with flowers and twinkling lights. About 50 people attended. Friends, family, Rochelle's fellow teachers, James's relatives. Everyone who mattered, everyone who'd supported Rochelle through her recovery. I walked down the aisle first as the maid of honor, wearing a maroon dress that complemented Rochelle's red one. Then came Rochelle, walking alone because she'd insisted she didn't need anyone to give her away. She was giving herself to James, freely and fully, not because someone was handing her over but because she chose it. James stood at the altar watching Rochelle approach, and the love on his face was unmistakable. This was what a healthy relationship looked like. Mutual respect, genuine affection, equal partnership. The ceremony was short and sweet. Traditional vows with a few personal touches. When they kissed, everyone applauded. Rochelle and James walked back down the aisle hand in hand, both grinning like they couldn't contain their joy. The reception was held in the same garden. Tables set up under a tent, music playing, food being served. I gave a toast as maid of honor, talking about Rochelle's strength and resilience, about how proud I was of everything she'd overcome. My sister faced unimaginable challenges, I said, raising my glass. But she never let them defeat her. She fought back, she healed, and she chose to love again. That takes courage. That takes hope. Rochelle, you inspire me every day. And James, thank you for seeing how special she is and treating her the way she deserves to be treated. To the happy couple. Everyone drank and cheered. Rochelle wiped tears from her eyes, happy tears this time. Later, as the party wound down and guests started leaving, Rochelle and I found a quiet moment together. Thank you, she said. For everything. For believing me when I told you about Gabriel. For coming up with a plan to gather evidence. For risking yourself to help me. I wouldn't be here without you. You'd have found another way, I said. You're stronger than you think. Maybe, Rochelle said. But having you with me made all the difference. You gave me hope when I'd lost it. You reminded me that I deserved better. You helped me get free. We hugged, both of us crying a little. 2 years ago we'd been fighting for Rochelle's life and freedom. Now we were celebrating her new beginning. The journey had been hard, but we'd made it through together. The following week Rochelle and James left for their honeymoon. 2 weeks in Hawaii just relaxing and enjoying being together. While they were gone, I worked on expanding my graphic design business and continued my volunteer work at the domestic violence shelter. I'd been asked to speak at events occasionally, sharing Rochelle's story and talking about how to identify and escape abusive relationships. It was hard sometimes, reliving those 3 weeks I'd spent pretending to be her, remembering Gabriel's violence and control. But if sharing our story helped even one person, it was worth it. When Rochelle and James returned from their honeymoon, they settled into their new life together. They'd bought a small house, nothing fancy but all theirs. Rochelle continued teaching. James coached the middle school soccer team. They had game nights with friends, took weekend trips, lived a normal, happy life. One evening about 3 months after the wedding, Rochelle called me sounding excited. "I have news," she said. "We're pregnant." I screamed with joy, startling everyone in the coffee shop where I was working. "Oh my goodness, Rochelle. That's incredible. How far along?" 8 weeks, Rochelle said. "I just found out today. Renee, I'm going to be a mom." "You're going to be an amazing mom," I told her. "And I'm going to be the best aunt ever." Over the next few months, I watched Rochelle's happiness grow along with her belly. She glowed with excitement about becoming a mother. She and James prepared a nursery, painting it in shades of yellow and green, filling it with stuffed animals and books. "Sometimes I can't believe this is my life," Rochelle told me one day as we shopped for baby clothes. 5 years ago, I was trapped in an abusive marriage thinking I'd never escape. Now I have a loving husband, a baby on the way, a job I love. It's like I'm living someone else's life. "It's your life," I said. "The life you deserve. The life you fought for." "We fought for," Rochelle corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." Around this time, we heard that Gabriel had been moved to a maximum security prison after repeated violent incidents with other inmates. He'd lost all privileges, spent most of his time in his cell, had no contact with the outside world. His appeals were exhausted. He was facing at least 15 more years before parole was even a possibility. "Good," Rochelle said when she heard. "He can spend the next 15 years thinking about what he did." But mostly, Rochelle didn't think about Gabriel anymore. She was too busy living her life, too focused on the future to dwell on the past. Gabriel was a chapter that had closed. She'd moved on to better things. The baby arrived in late fall. A healthy girl named Hope, which felt appropriate given everything Rochelle had been through. I was there when Hope was born, standing beside James as Rochelle brought her daughter into the world. When the nurse placed Hope in Rochelle's arms, my sister looked at her baby with such pure love that I started crying. This was what Gabriel had tried to take from her. The chance to be happy, to love, to create new life. But he'd failed. Rochelle had survived and built something beautiful. "She's perfect," Rochelle whispered, touching Hope's tiny hand. "She is," James agreed, kissing Rochelle's forehead. "Just like her mother." I took photos of the new family, capturing that moment of pure joy. Later, when Hope was asleep and James had gone to get coffee, I sat with Rochelle in the quiet hospital room. "How does it feel?" I asked. "Scary," Rochelle admitted. "I'm responsible for this little person now. What if I mess up? What if I can't protect her?" "You'll be fine," I said. "Look at everything you've already overcome. You're one of the strongest people I know. And Hope has you and James and a whole support system who loves her. She's lucky." "I'm the lucky one," Rochelle said, looking at her sleeping daughter. "I get to raise her in a home full of love, not fear. I get to show her what a healthy relationship looks like. I get to teach her to be strong and confident and never let anyone make her feel small. She'll learn all that from watching you," I said. As Hope grew, I visited often. I was Aunt Renee, the favorite person to play with, the one who brought presents and told stories. I watched Hope take her first steps, say her first words, develop her own personality. She was bright and curious and fearless, so different from the scared, broken woman her mother had been when she'd shown up at my door years ago. Rochelle continued therapy, working through trauma that occasionally resurfaced. She had bad days still, moments when old fears crept in. But they were becoming less frequent. The good days far outnumbered the bad ones now. She also started speaking publicly about domestic violence, sharing her story to help others. She was nervous at first, worried about being judged or not being believed. But audiences responded with support and gratitude. Other survivors reached out to thank her for giving them courage. "I never thought something good could come from those terrible 5 years," Rochelle said after one speaking event. "But if my story helped someone else escape or recognize the warning signs of abuse, then maybe it wasn't all for nothing." My own life continued to evolve too. My business grew beyond anything I'd expected. I hired 2 employees and moved into a real office space. I continued volunteering and speaking about domestic violence awareness. And I even started dating, something I'd put off while helping Rochelle and dealing with the aftermath of Gabriel's trial. His name was Andre, an accountant I'd met through mutual friends. He was kind, funny, stable. Nothing dramatic or intense, just a good person who treated me well. We took things slow, both of us careful after watching what Rochelle had been through. But it was nice to have someone to share my life with. 5 years after Gabriel's sentencing, life had settled into a comfortable routine. Rochelle and James had a second child, a boy named Michael. Hope was in kindergarten, bringing home drawings and stories every day. Rochelle had been promoted to head of her grade level at school. James had become assistant principal at his school. They bought a bigger house with a yard where the kids could play. They hosted barbecues and birthday parties. They were just a normal, happy family. No one would ever guess what Rochelle had survived unless she told them. Gabriel was still in prison and would be for many more years. We rarely thought about him anymore. He'd become irrelevant to our lives, a footnote in Rochelle's story rather than the main chapter. One day Rochelle and I took Hope and Michael to the park. We pushed them on swings, helped them climb playground equipment, laughed as they ran around with endless energy. "Can you believe it's been 5 years?" Rochelle asked as we sat on a bench watching the kids play. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday," I said. "Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago." "I'm grateful for all of it," Rochelle said. "Even the hard parts. They made me who I am now. Stronger, wiser, more appreciative of what I have." "You've come so far," I said. "I'm proud of you." "I'm proud of us," Rochelle said. "We did this together. You didn't give up on me even when things got dangerous. You believed I deserved better and helped me fight for it." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Hope and Michael play. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and everything felt peaceful and right. "Sometimes I think about what my life would have been like if I'd stayed with Gabriel," Rochelle said quietly. "If I'd never found the courage to leave." "But you did leave," I said. "That's what matters." "I know," Rochelle said. "And I'm so grateful. Grateful for you, for James, for my kids, for this beautiful life I get to live. Gabriel tried to destroy me, but I survived. More than survived. I thrived." She turned to look at me, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Thank you for giving me my life back. Thank you for everything." "Always," I said, hugging her. "That's what sisters do." Hope ran over then, demanding we push her on the swings higher. We followed her back to the playground, back to the simple joy of spending time with family. The past was behind us. The future stretched ahead, full of possibilities and hope and happiness. Gabriel had tried to write Rochelle's story as a tragedy. But we'd rewritten it together, turning it into a story of survival, strength, and ultimately triumph. And the ending? The ending was just the beginning of something beautiful. As the sun set that evening, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I watched Rochelle laugh with her children, hold James's hand, live the life she'd fought so hard to claim. This was justice. This was revenge. Not the angry, violent kind, but the best kind. The kind where the victim not only survives but builds a life so full of love and joy that the abuser becomes nothing but a distant memory. Gabriel had lost everything trying to control Rochelle. And Rochelle had gained everything by finding the courage to break free. That was how our story ended. With healing, with hope, with happiness that Gabriel could never touch or destroy again. And every day forward would be another chapter in Rochelle's new story, one she was writing herself, full of choices and freedom and love. The nightmare was over. The dream was just beginning. And it was going to be better than anything Gabriel had ever allowed her to imagine.